Hi, everybody. It's Nadine again. Thank you for joining me if you're able to today when I'm doing my live PD. This next session is basically a continuation of what PD I had done last week, which was tips to design content digitally. So a lot of this one is hands-on. So what I'm going to do is in a moment, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And then I'm literally just going to go slide by slide, and then we're going to go out and we're going to start to demonstrate things. If you can, go ahead and type your name, where you're from, and what you teach. And keep in mind that since I don't have a co-host, that I'm going to be toggling back and forth to take a look at the comments. But periodically when I come back over here, I'll take a look and I'll be sure to throw in any answers or shout outs your way. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The document that I'm sharing, I just basically extended the number of slides where I was giving tips, and I just put everything still into that document, okay? So when you're going out there, you might go, wait a minute, this is your old presentation. No, I just keep adding more stuff to it. Okay. Awesome. So I see a few folks from Indiana on here. Hi, Tracy. So it looks like that we have Carrie here. She's from Minnesota. Cool. Thanks so much for joining. And Carrie. Carrie is a second grade teacher in my district. So woohoo. Thanks for coming. Oh, and Tracy said that she teaches kindergarten, okay. And it looks like that we have someone from North Carolina. All right, cool. Thanks, folks. And again, as more people join, feel free to add that in there if you want. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we will get going here. All right, let me get that on here. And now we're in here. So on the tips to help you design content digitally, you are just going to take a look at my slides, and then I'll actually add the resource into the YouTube link in just a little bit. I noticed that some people already had the link, and that's fine. But if not, don't worry, you'll get access to it when I'm finished. So last week, I kind of used this slide as my go-to to kind of demonstrate things. I already talked about different ways that you can add flair to slides. I talked about sites you can go to get images. A lot of people liked the virtual letterboard that I have as an option in here. I love Unsplash. And I've got my transparent overlays, which we demonstrated on the sample slide. One of my favorites, adding audio to slides. That one's an awesome one. And when we got towards the end, I started talking about Flaming Text. That's a website that you guys can use for lettering. So that's just flamingtext.com. And then I believe when we wrapped up, we talked about Slides Mania. So if you haven't used Slides Mania, which I forgot the S there, so I'm going to add it really quick here. Oh, and of course, it's going to make it go off of the chart there. But definitely go out to her site and take a look at her templates. They're 100% free. So now I think we're ready to get going with new stuff. So that's what I really want to get into. So if you were in my last session, I was talking about different ways to switch up your e-learning, and I love to give a lot of shout outs to my friend Amanda Sandoval out in California. And I noticed that in a lot of her creations, she had these really cool fonts. And I was like, man, where in the world are you finding those? And so she's the one that mentioned Font Meme. So if you're not familiar with it, so it's fontmeme.com. When you guys get access to the slides, then it's going to take you actually out to it. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So have you ever watched a show or something? I'm kind of like a font geek. So when I'm seeing something in print or I see it come on the television screen, I'm always like, oh, what font are they using for that? So to start off with, that's something that's pretty cool. is that this will tell you the name of the font that they're using for popular shows. Now, if you go out here to font collection on here, you can also choose different options. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, this is really nice, but you know, I can't download fonts. That's okay, because none of these are actually ones that you're going to download. So I tapped on handwriting fonts, and we'll use Marcus the Cow as an example. I'll test out that one. So right here, it then says I can tap on preview. So when I tap preview, I'm going to type in the word preview. And you can make whatever size that you want. I'll go ahead and make mine 200. And I don't really need an effect. It's got different gradients if I want to do that. I like to pick just a solid color. And I am pretty standard that I usually go all dark, like I'll use a black or I'll use a white to give that contrast. But I'm going to go ahead and select that. And now it's got the word preview in it. So when I come over the word preview, I'm going to do a 2-finger touch because I'm on a Chromebook right now. And I'm going to hit copy image. And I can actually come back over here and Control V, and I can paste it onto here. Okay. Of course, if you're going to use something from Font Meme, you definitely want to make sure that you are giving credit when you're using one of those fonts. But the cool part about this is that, again, I'm not having to download it. It's totally free for me to use any of the different fonts that are out there. So it's a great tool. The other nice part too is that if I want to make it bigger, smaller, you know, change it up, it's a lot easier than me actually going out and trying to type it. Now, just from a design point, people will say, wow, well, I wanted to type out like a whole paragraph using that font. That is not what I would recommend. When you find like a fancy font or something like that, I would make sure that you pick some key wording, like if you're going to type in the word like step 1 or something like that, you can use a different style font to give it that pop that you're looking for, but don't type like the whole thing in that font, if that makes sense. All right, so the next one that I wanted to pull up besides Font Meme is fontpair.co. And I believe I touched on this in the last session that I did, but I didn't have the link, so I wanted to make sure that I put it back. So again, it's fontpair.co, and I'll let that one open up. So this site is actually giving you recommendations on featured font pairs, and they even have ones that they'll focus on that they know are Google fonts. So both of those are options that you guys can take a look at. I will be talking about the fact that only using 2 different fonts inside of a document is key. It gets too overwhelming for students. And I've been trying to do a lot better with that, in that I'm always trying to make sure that I'm not having so many different fonts inside of my slides or inside of anything that I'm creating digitally. Stick with 2 for the entire presentation. Okay. And I'm actually going to skip down a few slides because I'm a Google Innovator, and my project that I'm working on right now has to do with dyslexia, but I came across that there is a Google Innovator, and she used to be a graphic designer, and then she decided to go back into teaching. And so her project is all about creating a site called Design Ed, Teachers Are Designers. So I'm going to take a moment, and I'm actually going to pop out to her Google site because she has a lot of really cool stuff on here. I'll go to her homepage first. She has all kinds of lesson templates, different things that are going on. that you can take a look at. Lauren is really nice. But what I've been really paying attention to is she has a whole section of her site that has design tips, and that has been really helpful. I think especially because she was a graphic designer before going into being a full-time teacher. So remember, I just talked about 2 fonts maximum. So she even gives you some ideas with that. This one's actually a video where she's talking about line spacing. And I love what she had said. I love what she had commented about, right here, you can see it underneath the play button. 1.5 line spacing is actually easier for a student who has an IEP. It's easier for them to read it. So that's a great design tip. And again, nobody's perfect. I'm also trying to, redesign my work as well. So she's got all kinds of cool items that are listed in here that I wanted you guys to see. So again, the link to this document is going to be in the resources. And then actually, let me stop for a minute, and I am going to throw it in the chat. Now watch me say that, and somebody else may have gone ahead and done it. So I'll stop here for a moment. All right. So that has the link to the slides that I'm using. All right. So you guys can see that there. So that way you can kind of click on the links as I'm going. And I will pop back over to the slides. That way I can continue on, but I wanted to help out anybody that may not have the slides. Okay. All right, hopping back in. Okie dokie. So now let's go down, and I want to talk about the Scribble and the Polyline tool. So there's different ways that I use these tools. So in Google Slides, I'm right next to where you see the shape tool, where it's got the circle and the square, and it has an image of a line and a down arrow. Okay, there's all different kinds of lines that you can use. I used to be totally afraid of the Scribble tool, and now I kind of like it, probably a little bit too much. But just to demonstrate here, I'm going to tap on the Scribble tool. Now, I don't even have a mouse with my Chromebook. I'm actually going to do the method that I tell students when I teach them this. I always say, like, one finger up in the air, one finger holds down in the corner. So I'm pushing down on the touchpad in the corner. The other finger is gliding. So that is how it makes it easier. So when I'm done, I let go. But I'm not done with my scribble. Now I can go in and change the color. I can go in here and change the thickness. The ones that you see pictured are a size 8. That's the thickest that I tend to go. Typically, if it's something smaller, then I'll make it a size 4. Just so this shows up, I'll make it a size 8. Now, don't forget, you've got these points over here. Like at the line start, did I want it to have like a dot? And for the end, did I want it to have the arrow at the end? Okay. I just want people to see how to do this, because a lot of times teachers will say, well, I can't do that. So when I'm actually showing you guys, then they get that option. Another thing that I like to do with the Scribble tool is I like to add the dropped background, like the drop shadow. So if you go over to Format Options, you're going to see that box. And now when I tap it, and then when I click off of it, it's just a slight shadow that you're going to notice that's on there. Now, if you did not know this trick, let's say I selected this and I'm like, ooh, I want to do another scribble, and I want it to be the same font and everything. So if I come back here and I tap on Scribble, do the same thing. So I'm making my own scribble here. Watch what happens when I let go. Aha. It remembers all of the other features that you did. So I don't have to take the time to do the end dot, the beginning, you know, then going through and adding the drop shadow. It will actually go in and do all of that on its own. Okay. So if you did not know that trick. So the other one that I wanted to demonstrate is the polyline. So if I went out here, I'm just going to quickly get an image here. Let me see. Let me look for apple. I didn't really need that apple, but we'll go for it. Let's say, I'm trying to find one that I like here. Let's say I have this image of an apple, but I want to create my own clip art. I like it, but it's not exactly what I'm going for. So I'm going to slide over here where I'm at. Whoops, I just went off the slide here. So I have this picture of the apple. So now I'm going to start to demonstrate what the Polyline tool does. I call it like the ultimate tracing tool. So if I come right here where it says the word Polyline, you have to get really good at using the touchpad or use a mouse, like plug in a mouse. I've gotten good enough that I don't even need to use one, but that's after lots and lots of practice. But literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at one end, and you're going to notice that I just keep on coming around. And this is a very, very tedious process because you literally are going to trace all through those points. I'm just trying to get one. So, oh, and I clicked too fast. If you click too fast, this is why I said you have to be extremely patient. You're basically outlining all the way around the edge. And once you do that, then it will fill in. Okay. So since I messed up on that one, I'm going to go back to my polyline again, and I'm going to trace just the stem. So we'll go with a little piece here because I don't have all day to just do the Polyline tool. Now, probably one of the coolest things, see now that one is complete. So notice how it defaults to a certain color and so on. One of the coolest things that I've done is my daughter, Mackenzie, I asked her to go out to Art Hub for Kids. Like she'd been practicing all these different drawing styles. And so she kind of got the concept of how the guy does the face and the eyes and so on. And what she did, I said, hey, if you were to draw a picture of me, what would it look like? And she did this cute little drawing of me on there. And then I said, you know what? I don't have a picture of a Chromebook. Could you draw a Chromebook for me? So I don't know. It's just so much better when you see a kid draw it. So what we did, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. So what we did on this, after she drew the picture, she did not color it. She just did it with black and white paper pencil. Then I took a picture of it with my phone, and then I sent it to myself to that way I had her image on my Google Slides. And then what I did was I then took the Polyline tool and I traced all around each little piece that she drew of me or of the Chromebook. So when we did that, the product of what it comes out as, it's so cool because it's like a polished piece of clip art. And that's one of the most common things that I get asked all the time. People are like, where did you find that clip art? Or how did you do that? And so I'm trying really hard to get to a point where if it's not an icon, if it's not an image, you know, that I'm not gonna, you know, use, that I'm not gonna get from a site, I always start asking myself, how can I make it myself? So I will sketch something, or else I'll go out and find like a copyright friendly image. And then I want to make it my own. So then I can take that Polyline tool and I can go over the top of it. Now, by me telling you that, that leads me into some other tips that I'm going to go back and start sharing on here. So let me go back here just a moment. So I'll go back. All right. So I obviously want the stem of this to match the stem color that I've got here. Yeah, true. I could go to the paint can and I could be like, I mean, I think that looks pretty good. But if I really, really want to find the exact same color, I'm going to use, and I need to have this selected again. I'm going to use a Chrome extension, and I'm finding where I put it in here. Aha. Color Pick Eyedropper. I use this thing all of the time. If you don't have it, then all you have to do is just tap on this and it will take you out to Color Pick Eyedropper. So let me go back to my Apple here, wherever he went. Oh, that's right. He's on the Polyline one. Okay, so I have this guy selected, but now up at the top of my screen, I'm going to go to that Color Pick Eyedropper. When I tap on it, the cool part is that it's giving me the hex codes, which if you don't know what a hex code is, it's actually the number of the color of that item. So if I wanted to match the gray, notice it has it listed there. If I wanted to match a certain shade of this red, it would do so. So I'm going to come up here to this brown. So it found it. And when I tap, now it's got it on here. So the next thing I do is I right click copy. Now this is important. Anytime I use the Color Pick Eyedropper, you got to hit the X next because you're done with it. You've done what you needed. So now I have that stem selected and I'm going to come here to the paint can. And I can't just pick a brown. I need to come now to custom and see where it's already got the hex code highlighted. I'm going to backspace, Control V. So I'm going to paste it in there. And now when I click OK, wow, it looks exactly like the color of the stem that I wanted. Now keep in mind every time that you use that Polyline tool, that one of the things that it's going to do is it's always going to add that little border. So I like to make it transparent each time. Also keep in mind when you're making your own clip art that always use that drop shadow because it's going to add an extra layer to make that item stand out. Okay, so that is using the Polyline tool. So let's now start talking about colors. So I love this website. It's called colors.co. And if you were in my last session, this is the actual palette that I used for one of my templates. So I've been starting to try to get better at graphic design as well. And being able to select a palette is always really helpful. And, you know, I'm not an art teacher, so being able to select the correct color combination that goes together, that can be hard. All right. So they have it taken care of for you. And if you say, oh, well, that's really nice, but that's not what I was looking for, I can go into Explore. So then it has different color palettes that it's going to pop up. It allows me to save the color palettes that I have going on. I like this because it tells you what's trending. And again, I'm kind of like a font snob, as I said earlier, that I notice font styles and certain things. I'm now starting to pay attention to color palettes. So much like when you go into a paint store, you can start to see all these different color palettes that are here. And I bet that when you look at certain people that do graphic design, you're going to go, oh, well, that's where they got that from, because you'll start to notice, you're like, how in the world did they get so good at their color schemes? So that's definitely something that you want to take a look at. If you guys happen to be on an Apple device, I know that and also if you use Adobe, there is an Adobe plugin. So that way you can tap into the different color palettes. That's why I wanted to come back to this slide. You can actually save your collection. If you're doing one and you're like, oh, crud, I want to make that something that I can go back to. You can sign in and then you can save those. These are kind of cool because it has, you know, do you want to adjust the palette? Then you have that option in there. This is pretty cool too, color blindness. So it's letting you know if it's someone that would have a hard time being able to see things. So it can really help you out for accessibility. Okay, so colors.co. So I typically use that for backgrounds when I'm making templates. But another site that I use for hex codes, SchemeColor. And the reason why that I use this one is because I've always felt like it was really hard to find the right hex codes for skin color. And so I really, really love this site for that point, that it helps out a lot with that, for you to be able to pick and choose what it is that you're looking for. So I feel like that if you're looking for different skin tone palettes, this has several that are in there. Much better than if you're trying to just, you know, go out to, you know, select something and, you know, go out to the paint can. That's not going to cut it in this scenario, just so that you know. Before I go on, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment so that way if anybody has any questions, you guys can feel free to pop any questions, or if there's something that that you had a question about, anything like that, you guys can pop it in there. If not, I'll just keep on talking. Let me see here. What I'm gonna get ready to go back into is going to be, I'll talk to you about animations, how I add animations into slides, and then we'll move on to some other tips. Okay. So it looks like everybody's good because I don't see anybody asking any questions, but I love the fact that we've got several people joining. I'll go back to sharing my screen and just continue on. Okie doke. All right. If you did not know about this extension, this one is the GIF Chrome Extension. So what makes it nice, and I've already loaded it for myself. If you don't have the GIF extension for Chrome, then that is the link to do so. Now, if you are wanting to have your students add the GIF for Chrome extension, that would be like a ginormous no. Giphy is great, but it's going to have inappropriate animated GIFs as well as appropriate ones, if that makes sense. So I'm going to tap on the extension, and then I'm going to just put in like the word smile. So we're going to see lots of different popular ones that are in here. I'm going to actually go with this dog guy here. So it gives you some options. I can actually just drag and drop the dog directly onto the slide. And the cool part about that is when I do it, not only does it copy the dog, but it also copies the attribute to Giphy. So I'm just going to move him like right over there. Another thing that you can do on Giphy, and I like that it goes right back to where we were. So right now we're looking at GIFs, but they also have stickers that you can add in there as well. Some of the ones that I really like right now, these, I'm wondering if these are the ones that were made from Emoji One, but because they look very similar to it. But you can now do animated emojis. I saw someone on Twitter the other day that they did a check-in with students, and instead of just having the plain old emoji, you can go out here and you can add, you know, the sticker, the GIF sticker, and it's going to do the exact same thing. So you cannot find an easier way for you to be able to add animated GIFs than going with the Giphy option here. Okay. Just moving that over so you guys can see it a little bit better. Now, I think I went over this tip the last time, but in case you missed it, anytime that I'm going to resize an image, I've gotten really good at using this shortcut. I hold down Control and Alt while the image is selected. So Control and Alt, and I'm tapping the letter K, and it's going to make it bigger. Or I can do Control Alt J, and that will make it smaller. So it's those typical tricks that when people say, how in the world did you get that done so fast? It's because I use those shortcuts to help me out whenever I'm making something. For instance, I'm going to move this emoji over here. If I wanted to move that emoji to the back, and for whatever reason, if I wanted the dog in the front, I can pick either image, but I'm going to go with this guy. And if I do Control Shift, if I hold those two buttons down and I do the down arrow, he will go to the back. If I went, oh, crud, I did not mean to do that. If I make a mistake, I can do Control Z, and it's actually going to take me back to, it's just the same thing as the back arrow. If I want the dog to be in front, so now I'm going to tap on the dog here. Same concept. Maybe I'll tap on the dog. He's being a little finicky. There we go. Control Shift and up arrow. So watch this. When I do Control Shift up arrow, now he just went ahead of the emoji. So I know it may sound like something really silly because you're like, oh, something so simple, but you would be surprised. There's so many times that, you know, that I'll show people something that is very basic, but it's just what they needed. Okay. So again, that is the GIF Chrome Extension. All right. I already talked about Design Ed with the fellow Google Innovator. I wanted to kind of talk about a few design tips that I try to tell people whenever they're trying to design for e-learning. Use a template, and really, even if it's not e-learning, if you're just, you know, if you're wanting to come up with something that you want people to use in your classroom for a digital assignment, I feel like that a template is big. So if you can make a design that is a template, then you can repurpose that for multiple lessons, and the kids aren't having to learn, like, where do I find this? Where do I click? If you're watching this and you love HyperDocs, that's the reason why that I love HyperDocs so much, because I can always start out with the template and then I can tweak it to meet my needs. Okay. Keep things visual. Use an icon or a logo. We definitely don't want long URLs. That is annoying. That's not what we're going for here. It's very confusing to families. Now, I typically, if it's something I want them to click on, I'll add the scribble arrow and I'll put like a little blurb that says tap image for a link or something like that. But less clicks. I've had people that didn't understand when they design their content digitally. And in fact, I'll go ahead and demonstrate it in here. If you want to, you know, think about it this way. Google owns YouTube. They're going to make it easy for you to include a YouTube video directly in Google Slides. So all you have to do is go to Insert Video, and you're going to notice that YouTube pops right up. So you can actually search in it. But what I typically do is I go out to YouTube, I find the URL that I want, and then I'm going to paste it into here. And when I do that, then it's actually going to stay inside of the slide. So again, I'm going back to the less clicks. When we package our e-learning that we do for our elementary, we're trying really hard to make it about less clicks so that way it's much easier for a child. And notice that I also put on here, and again, this is for e-learning, do you have some type of a checklist? We actually ended up making a checklist for our e-learning, and we knew that we could link it out to a Google form. But again, we were thinking less clicks. Just on a side note, the very first time my own kids did e-learning, I remember this so well. A teacher wanted them to fill out a Google form that they did everything, but the teacher forgot about changing the permissions. And so she got bombarded, poor thing, on the very first day that they did it. So I tried to think of, well, what's another way we could do it where we know that they finished everything, but we're trying to make it as easy on everybody, keeping them inside of the slide deck. So we actually added our checklist as the last slide, and people are actually just physically moving the little checks over. So that way the teacher sees everything that they need within the slide deck. Okay. This is getting close to, it's getting close to the end of, the round 2 of the tips. I will be offering a session next week that's all about Google Drawings, because there are so many things that you can do with Google Drawings that you may not have thought about. This also doesn't mean that I'm totally done with tips to design content digitally. There's tons of stuff that's on here. And again, I'll probably do a part 3 and keep adding more. I always want to make sure that I'm not inundating our teachers or really anybody. I want all of you to be able to find what you need and that you need time to play around with it, because I know that this is a lot of information. So if you guys still have questions, you can continue to pop that in there. I'll stay live for a little bit longer. And then we have one more session today where I'm having my friend Jessica Reed from our New York City cohort, and she's going to be talking about some SPED and Gen Ed ideas. So feel free to stick around if you can. If not, I will be live again next Monday. I just lined up Tyler Tarver from my Google cohort, and he's going to be doing a session all about YouTube tips and tricks. So I'm going to keep trying to rev it up and get access to some other people that I know that you guys would want to hear from. So thanks so much. And if you want to join again, I'll see you at 3 o'clock.